Once upon a time, nestled at the edge of a vast and magical forest, there lived two adventurous siblings named Tim and Tessie. Tim was the older brother, brave and curious, always ready for a new adventure. Tessie, his little sister, was gentle and thoughtful, with a heart full of love for animals and nature. They lived with their parents in a cozy house, but the person they admired most was their grandfather, Grandpa Ben. Grandpa Ben was wise and kind, and he had spent his whole life protecting the forest that surrounded their home. He knew every tree, every stream, and every creature that called the forest home. One bright morning, as the sun peeked through the trees, Grandpa Ben called Tim and Tessie to him. "I have something important to tell you," he said, his eyes twinkling. "The forest needs new protectors, and I believe you two are ready to become the next forest guardians." Tim's eyes widened. "Really, Grandpa? Us?" Tessie's heart fluttered with excitement. "What do we have to do?" she asked eagerly. Grandpa Ben smiled warmly. "Being a forest guardian means taking care of the forest, protecting the animals, and learning from the wisdom of those who came before you. It's a big responsibility, but I know you're up to the task. I'll guide you along the way." And so, their adventure as forest guardians began. The first task Grandpa Ben gave them was to visit the great river that flowed through the forest. It was a beautiful, sparkling river, but as Tim and Tessie approached, they noticed something was wrong. There was trash scattered along the riverbanks, and some of the plants near the water looked sick. Tessie's face fell. "The river's so dirty. The animals won't have clean water to drink." Grandpa Ben nodded solemnly. "That's why it's important to take care of the environment. Every piece of trash, every little thing we do to nature has an impact." Tim rolled up his sleeves. "Let's clean it up." Together, Tim and Tessie worked hard to pick up the trash and clear the riverbanks. They found bottles, bags, and even an old shoe. Tessie made sure not to disturb the plants as she carefully removed the litter tangled in the roots. When they finished, the river sparkled once more, and the plants seemed to stand taller. Grandpa Ben smiled with pride. Taking care of the environment isn't just about cleaning up. It's about respecting the world around you, making sure that everything has its place, and leaving things better than you found them. Tim and Tessie beamed. They had completed their first task as forest guardians. The next day, Grandpa Ben gave them a new challenge. "Today, I want you to work together to help the animals prepare for the colder months ahead. There's much to do, and the key is to work as a team." Tim and Tessie set off into the forest, where they found the squirrels gathering acorns and the birds busy building stronger nests. But as they watched, Tim and Tessie began to argue. "Tessie, you're moving too slowly," Tim said, frustrated. "Well, you're rushing and making a mess." Tessie shot back, crossing her arms. Just then they heard a rustling sound. It was a family of beavers working together to build a dam. The father beaver placed sticks while the mother smoothed mud along the edges. The baby beavers helped by bringing small twigs to the pile. They worked together so smoothly that the dam grew larger and stronger with every passing minute. Grandpa Ben appeared behind them, chuckling. "Look at the beavers," he said. "They're working together because they respect each other's strengths. In a family, everyone has a role, and when we help each other, we can do great things." Tim and Tessie looked at each other sheepishly. "I'm sorry," Tim said. "I shouldn't have rushed you." "I'm sorry too," Tessie replied. "Let's work together." With that, the siblings teamed up to help the animals gather food and build safe homes for the winter. Tim lifted the heavier branches while Tessie carefully arranged them. They realized that by respecting each other's strengths, they could accomplish so much more. For their final task, Grandpa Ben led Tim and Tessie to the oldest part of the forest, where the ancient trees stood tall and proud. One tree, in particular, was larger than all the others. It was the great oak, a tree that had stood for hundreds of years, its branches reaching high into the sky. "The great oak has been here longer than any of us," Grandpa Ben explained. "It has seen generations of animals and people come and go. It's important to respect the wisdom that comes with age, whether it's a tree, an animal, or an elder." Tim and Tessie walked around the great oak, marveling at its size and strength. They noticed how many animals lived in its branches, how its roots reached deep into the earth, and how it provided shelter and food for so many creatures. As they sat beneath its wide canopy, Grandpa Ben told them stories of his own adventures as a young boy, learning to care for the forest from his father. Tim and Tessie listened closely, understanding that the knowledge passed down from elders was just as important as the trees and rivers they were protecting. Being a forest guardian isn't just about taking action, Grandpa Ben said softly. It's about listening, learning, and honoring those who have come before you. Tim and Tessie nodded, realizing that their role as forest guardians was part of something much bigger than themselves. After completing their 3 tasks, Tim and Tessie stood proudly before their grandfather. "We're ready," they said together. "We understand what it means to be forest guardians." Grandpa Ben smiled. "You've learned to respect the environment, to work together as a family, and to listen to the wisdom of your elders. Those are the most important lessons of all." As the sun set over the forest, Tim and Tessie made a promise to continue protecting the forest, to care for the animals, and to pass on what they had learned to others. They knew that being a forest guardian was not just a title, it was a way of life. From that day on, Tim and Tessie explored the forest with new eyes, always looking for ways to help and protect. And with Grandpa Ben's guidance, they grew into wise and caring guardians, teaching others the importance of respect for the environment, family, and elders. And so, the forest flourished, full of life and love, under the watchful care of its newest guardians, Tim and Tessie.